testing as well, if you had a lot of batteries to play with, and then figure it out that way. The estimation is more like a best guess for battery. I've never really seen or anything on the internet about these cells being used in traction for like a car.
Well, yeah, these are just like RV, like storage, like power cells, right?
Yeah, they're GBS cells, LiMnFePO4. So lithium, manganese, iron phosphate. They're, I don't know. People say on forums that they're junk, but
they're just low grade, no? They're low
tech. Yeah. And those are the people who are building like, you know, electric Ford Rangers and stuff. So
that's fucking sick.
Yeah. I think there was an electric Ford Ranger. They used a Siemens induction motor.
Nice.
And now, like, there's very few of those motors left, and people on, you know, like DIYelectriccar.com or what's the other one? I don't know, some other forum. They're looking for these motors because they're good. And I think because, you know, Tesla made the Roadster and the Model S and X with induction motors.
Yeah.
People are like, oh, these are, you know, this is the be-all, end-all motor tech that everyone needs to use.
Yeah.
So, but I don't know, they're all different in their own ways, right? They just found a good way to implement that motor for that purpose.
Another topic with building a performance car would be updating or modifying computer software. Again, that's kind of the main route that you take in, say, like a turbocharged car. You'd update the software. You have standalone fuel management system, standalone just powertrain management as a whole. What can you do on an EV to change tuning parameters? Like, I don't know, on a gas car you can add power with boost just right through the computer. So can you do something like that using the inverter, or through the inverter, or through the motor controller?
Yeah, I think it's kind of the same challenge of when you have a ECU for an engine, you don't know what are the inputs, what are the outputs, how do you program it. So that kind of stuff is all figured out empirically by people who are interested in that. So it's the same thing with an EV. Like, your main power conversion plant is the inverter, and the inverter, you know, you're controlling how much power you're sending to the motor, but what you're actually controlling is the pulse width of each phase, so that effectively controls current. And if you know how to change those parameters, or like how it estimates the motor flux or motor current based on the inverter current, then you could pretty much change how much power the motor is capable of, right? But the challenge is, like, when you have a black box that takes a throttle input and battery power and some switches and outputs power to a motor, you don't really know what it does inside. And unless they give you something like, you know, we had for this one, we had that's a ACM1 from SME, and then they gave us the SmartView software.
Yep.
You can change everything, like right down to the field-oriented control parameters, like how much inertia the rotor has, or, you know, all the control gains of it, and that was nice. But I don't think if you're pulling, let's say, like a drivetrain out of a Nissan Leaf, the Nissan is going to give you exactly what inputs are generated or used for which outputs. You know, people have figured out, like the HSR guys have figured out how to, like, they call it hacking, which is like it's hacking a motor, right? But everyone uses hacking.
It's a buzzword term, but yeah.
Tesla motor hacked. Yeah. So yeah, they hacked it using coding and algorithms, and so now you can buy a Tesla motor and use it as a traction motor for your car. You know, they're selling their controller. That's their product, right? They figured it out, so they should charge an arm and leg for it. Because
Tesla motor, is it like a three-phase? It is a three-phase induction motor?
Yeah, it's an induction motor. Yeah. Okay.
So on that topic, with a lot of people doing their own DIY builds, there are a lot of options. You could just go with like a DC motor, made it to your transmission. Like a lot of people have done the RX-8 conversion, for example. The rotary engine on its own, it's very straight through. It just houses the rotors, and it almost fits the same shape as the electric motors that people are putting in, which is why it works so well. They mate the electric motor to the transmission, and you could actually have a manual transmission electric vehicle, and it's great. there are a lot of other options aside from just a DC motor. So what are the controls advantages of choosing a three-phase versus just a DC motor?
Well, I think efficiency is one thing. Those, you're talking like the warp motors.
Yeah.
So that's easy. So I think people use those because they're cheap and you only need like a very simple controller for it. Yeah, you're literally changing duty cycle on like 4 power switches, right? That's the thing, right? For a motor, a DC motor, you need only 4 power switches. So you could buy bigger ones and have a higher current controller and have it the same price as a smaller 3-phase, right? But I think for AC motors, the biggest thing is longevity. Those motors are brushed, so the brushes wear out, they're noisy, you get like the carbon crap in the motor.
Yep.
For 3-phase motors, the biggest advantage is probably efficiency and the fact that there's no brushes, and you could probably get more power from a 3-phase motor. Like there's a reason if you walk into any like industrial place, like they don't have big DC motors powering their machinery, right? It's all AC induction motors. So I think they all have their own advantages. Tesla was able to figure out the induction motor as a traction motor really well. There's a reason they didn't go for permanent magnets, right? So permanent magnets are expensive, but still it's not as efficient as a permanent magnet motor.
So in the world of somebody doing an EV conversion, the main advantage of choosing a motor like a DC motor would mainly be price, but you do sacrifice in terms of maintenance. You will have to replace motor components in the DC due to the brushes being a physical connection. It does wear out, whereas the AC, you mentioned earlier, it would just be like fatigue on installation, for example.
Yeah,
but it's not as accelerated as brushes on a DC motor that are in constant contact, constant use throughout their operation.
And fatigue on installation is only something that happens if you're operating it at crazy temperatures, right?
Yep.
So, maybe for the DIY person, you are at a bigger risk because you don't have, thermal modeling simulations and stuff that have been designed beforehand to size the motors. So, yeah, I'd really like to drive one of those manual electric cars. Yeah. Because I saw one of those RX-8 conversions, and the guy was like, "Oh, you can start in first gear, or you can start in 5th gear. I just leave it in gear." So, yeah, that's kind of neat. Like, maybe there will be a market for electric manuals. Like, you don't need it because motors have a big constant power band, right?
Yeah.